They say the future is forged in steel and coated in light. They lie. The future is carved from silence, from the echoes of impossible choices, and the guttural scream of breaking glass. My name is Kalen, or it was. Now I'm just the cleaner. A phantom hunting ghosts in a city that's forgotten its own pulse. Tonight, the future dies. And maybe I die with it. 6 minutes. That's all I have. 6 minutes until Project Chimera, the weaponized AI that could rewrite global power structures, initiates its final purge. 6 minutes until every trace of its existence, every trace of my mission, vanishes into the digital ether. And then, 6 minutes after that, the city's orbital defense grid will paint my skull with a laser, mistaking me for the very terrorist I'm desperately trying to stop. A convenient cleanup. Perfect betrayal. The air thickens with ozone and the metallic stench of burnt wiring. Alarms shriek like banshees, a desperate counterpoint to the distant rumble of collapsing sectors. I'm deep within the core server array, a labyrinth of humming processors and flickering data streams, each one a thread in the conspiracy that framed me. My fingers, numb from the cold sweat, dance across the interface, bypassing firewalls designed by gods. Every second, another module locks down, another pathway vanishes. The heat signature on my wrist comm screams. A squad of corporate enforcers, not here for a polite conversation, breaching the main shaft. Their heavy boots thudding a death march up the stairwell. I can hear their comms crackle, distorted snippets of orders. Terminate on sight. No extraction. They want me silenced permanently, but they don't know what I'm truly after. Not just data, redemption, or perhaps just the satisfaction of watching their carefully constructed lies burn with me. The final access node shimmers, just out of reach, protected by a last, desperate lock. The countdown blazes crimson. 5 minutes and 12 seconds. This isn't a mission. It's a prayer to a broken god. The flickering glow of the screen was my only companion, a digital mirror reflecting the grotesque masterpiece I had orchestrated. My face, once a carefully curated brand, was now a viral phenomenon of tragedy, plastered across every news channel, every trending hashtag. They mourned Alex Thorne, the charming, adventurous social media personality, gone too soon. A cascade of public grief, a storm of tears and outrage, washed over me from the pixels. Each sorrowful tribute, each heartbroken fan art, twisted into a cruel mockery, tightening the knot of dread in my gut. Triumph had a bitter aftertaste, metallic and cold. The enormity of the lie, the sheer audacious scale of my deception, crashed down, not as a whisper, but as a deafening roar in the squalid silence of my hideout. This wasn't just a staged death. It was a digital cult, and I, the living ghost, was its unwilling, terrified deity. 3 months prior, in a haze of stale coffee and neon-lit screens, the blueprint for my demise was meticulously crafted. Ben, my tech-savvy co-conspirator, a ghost in the machine, outlined the final stages. His fingers danced across a holographic display, mapping out tidal currents, explosive charges, satellite blind spots, a macabre ballet of destruction. The yacht, my chosen tomb, became a prop in a grand, twisted play. Every digital breadcrumb, every pre-scheduled post, every last-seen timestamp was meticulously designed to go viral, to paint a picture of sudden, shocking tragedy. We were architects of sorrow, building a monument of grief designed for maximum public consumption. The air crackled with a dangerous blend of ambition and the high-voltage thrill of an impossible gamble. This wasn't just faking a death. It was engineering a legend, a viral phantom for the digital age, a ghost whose echoes would shake the world. The flickering phone screen became a window into my own digital wake, a surreal theater of mourning. I scrolled, a phantom observer, through the curated echoes of a life I deliberately extinguished. My old social media profiles, once vibrant with sponsored posts and carefully crafted selfies, were now digital shrines. Tributes poured in, an unending torrent of R.I.P. Alex messages, fan art depicting me as an angelic martyr, and elaborate, heartbreaking conspiracy theories attempting to unravel the mystery of my demise. Each post was a gut punch, a grotesque reminder of the real, tangible impact of my lie. My former life, now a public spectacle, felt both agonizingly familiar and utterly alien. The online persona I had cultivated, the Alex Thorne they mourned, was a ghost of a ghost, a manufactured legend I could neither touch nor truly escape. I was famous, yes, but at what unbearable cost? Then, a different kind of screen shattered my calculated indifference. A grainy, clandestine feed, procured through Ben's digital whispers, showed Chloe, my estranged sister, her shoulders shaking with an agony I hadn't prepared for. She clutched a framed photo of us, younger, smiling, utterly unaware of the chasm that would open. Our elderly mother, her face etched with a grief only a parent could know, cradled Chloe's head, whispering words I couldn't hear but could feel. This wasn't public theater. This was raw, unfiltered pain, the genuine despair of family ripped apart. Their tears, shimmering like shattered glass, cut through my carefully constructed facade, slicing deep into the cold, strategic heart of my deception. The manufactured legend I had created was a monster, feasting on the innocent, and their profound sorrow was the bitter, undeniable taste of my grotesque sin. The brittle silence of my hideout was violently shattered by a frantic, encrypted call. Ben, his voice, usually a calm monotone, was now a fractured mess of panic and accusation. The viral wildfire of my death had scorched too wide, too fast, drawing the wrong kind of heat. It's everywhere, Alex. They're digging deeper, connecting dots we never even thought of. His words, sharp as shrapnel, hammered against my eardrum. The meticulous planning, the layers of obfuscation, were cracking under the weight of global obsession. He demanded I lay lower, vanish completely, a ghost within a ghost, threatening to expose me himself if the scrutiny got too close, if his own meticulously crafted anonymity was threatened. The safe harbor of our shared secret was collapsing, and suddenly, the greatest danger wasn't just discovery, but betrayal. Miles away, in the antiseptic glow of a police precinct, Detective Miller, a woman whose cynicism was as sharp as her wit, meticulously reviewed the yacht accident report. Page after page of standard procedure, witness statements, and forensic analysis. All meticulously filed, all screaming accident. Yet, a flicker of something, a faint, almost imperceptible inconsistency in the debris pattern, a detail easily dismissed by others, snagged her attention like a burr. The wreckage photos, blown up on her screen, showed a peculiar spread, a splash pattern that didn't quite align with the reported explosion trajectory. Her seasoned eyes narrowed, a subtle shift in her posture, an instinctive distrust settling deep in her gut. It was a glitch, a silent whisper in the data, a thread she instinctively knew was begging to be pulled. The hunt had begun. Disguised, a shadow among shadows, I navigated the churning currents of the bustling market. Every face felt like a potential threat, every casual glance a judgment, a recognition waiting to strike. The air, thick with the scent of spices and sweat, felt heavy, suffocating. My cheap hat pulled low, my eyes darted, searching for familiar faces, for the telltale sign of a follower, a digital zealot determined to uncover the truth. Then a gut-wrenching halt. A street vendor, oblivious, hawked justice for Alex merchandise, t-shirts emblazoned with my face, keychains with my heroic image. It was a chilling reminder, a grotesque mirror held up to my manufactured fame. My legend, the very thing I'd created, was now a public commodity, a mockery of my existence, and its living ghost, was trapped, hunted by the very lie I had brought to life. There was no escape. The final, most surreal blow landed in the form of a podcast. A popular true crime series, usually reserved for forgotten cold cases and solved mysteries, had dedicated an entire season to my unsolved death. The host's deep, gravitas-laden voice dramatized every false detail, every manufactured clue, painting me as a martyr, a modern-day digital legend, cruelly snatched away. Public theories, wild and varied, were dissected with pseudo-academic fervor. My carefully constructed lie had transcended news cycles. It had become narrative, entertainment, a dark fable for the masses. I was no longer just a dead man, nor merely a viral phenomenon. I was a character, a symbol, forever etched into the collective consciousness, a ghost story told around digital campfires. The truth was buried, and the legend, an inescapable, monstrous entity, was solidifying with every download, every spoken word. The fluorescent hum of the rundown diner did little to mask the raw venom in Ben's voice. His eyes, once partners in a mad scheme, were now cold, predatory slits. He leaned across the scratched formica table, a predatory glint in his stare, demanding his cut, a significant portion of the hidden escape fund, or he'd blow the whistle. Every word was a hammer blow, shattering the fragile facade of their alliance. Alex felt a cold dread seep into his bones, a betrayal sharper than any physical wound. The plan, meticulously crafted, was now a ticking bomb, and the man who held the detonator was sitting right in front of him, chewing on a stale piece of gum, his loyalty bought and sold. This wasn't just about money. It was about survival, about the very air Alex breathed. The silence in the diner, punctuated by the clatter of distant dishes, felt deafening as Alex weighed his impossible choices, the stakes suddenly impossibly high. From the squalor of his hidden sanctuary, Alex watched his own funeral unfold across a flickering screen, a grand, digital spectacle. Celebrities, influencers, and millions of grieving fans wept openly, their tearful tributes echoing through the pixelated airwaves. His carefully constructed death had become a global phenomenon, a trending hashtag, a moment of collective mourning orchestrated by his own audacious deception. A perverse pride swelled within him, a chilling validation of his genius. But beneath the triumph, a profound wave of guilt and sadness washed over him, seeing the genuine grief, the real tears shed for a man who wasn't truly gone. He was a ghost watching his own eulogy, a silent, unseen specter haunted by the very success of his lie. The contrast between his wretched hideout and the dazzling, global farewell was a stark, brutal mirror, reflecting the monster he had become. In the cold, blue glow of her monitors, Miller relentlessly hunted. Hours blurred into an obsessive, caffeine-fueled haze as she peeled back layers of Alex Thorne's digital life. Most trails led nowhere, carefully erased, but then a flicker, a burner phone, activated for mere seconds, weeks after his supposed death. It was a digital phantom, a single, tiny, crucial thread in a vast, tangled web. Her breath hitched. The timestamp, the microlocation data, a brief, untraceable ping from a cell tower. Not enough for an arrest, but more than enough to confirm her gut instinct. Foul play. Alex Thorne wasn't just dead. He was missing. And somewhere out there, a new identity was taking shape. The game had just changed. The scent was fresh, and Miller, now more determined than ever, was finally on the hunt. In the vibrant, chaotic world of online fandom, a new kind of detective was emerging. Ava, Alex Thorne's most obsessive fan, posted a video, her eyes alight with manic certainty. She wasn't a professional, but her devotion was a terrifying force. Connecting obscure breadcrumbs, the specific vintage coffee cup in an old selfie, the unique graffiti mural glimpsed faintly in the background of a forgotten Instagram story, she meticulously mapped out his last known whereabouts. Her deductions were chillingly precise, pinpointing not just a city, but a district, a block. What seemed like harmless fan speculation was, in reality, a digital dragnet tightening around Alex's carefully constructed deception. Every like, every share, every innocent detail he'd ever broadcast, now became a noose, tightened by the very people he had sought to escape. She was dangerously, horrifyingly close. The city, once a sprawling cloak, was now a labyrinth of potential traps. Alex, melting into the lunchtime rush, felt a prickle of unease. Then a sleek black sedan. Too clean, too slow, too persistent. It shadowed him through the pulsating arteries of the metropolis. A silent, metallic predator. Adrenaline surged, a cold, bitter taste in his mouth. He ducked into an alley, wove through a market, pushed through a throng of tourists, every move a desperate dance of evasion. The sedan, however, was relentless, its dark windows reflecting the chaotic city, a chilling mirror of his own growing panic. He was hunted, and the chase was on, a high-stakes game of cat and mouse where the city itself became a weapon, and every corner held the promise of either escape or capture. He burst into the new safe house, gasping for air, the echo of the chase still pounding in his ears. But instead of sanctuary, he found violation. The front door, usually sturdy, hung ajar, splintered wood clinging to the frame. Inside, a chaotic tableau of overturned furniture, a smashed window, and scattered belongings screamed, breach. Panic, cold and absolute, seized him. They knew. His location, meticulously guarded, was compromised. There was no time to process, no moment for regret. He spun, his mind racing, already calculating the next desperate escape. The illusion of safety, his last bastion against the encroaching world, had shattered, forcing him back into the relentless, unforgiving urban wilderness. Every shadow now held a threat, every silence a warning. He was a creature forever on the run. Miller, a digital bloodhound, felt the thrill of the chase intensifying. Her screens glowed with intricate data visualizations, tracing a spiderweb of untraceable microtransactions. These wasn't just random data. These were the faint, carefully masked digital breadcrumbs of Alex Thorne's new, assumed identity. Every small purchase, every anonymous payment, formed a pattern only she could discern. Piece by piece, the digital mosaic coalesced. A series of seemingly insignificant transactions, carefully routed through proxies, converged to a specific quadrant of the city. The virtual world narrowed, compressing into a concrete reality. She was no longer guessing. She was closing in, a relentless shadow moving through the digital ether, preparing to manifest in the physical world. The distance between hunter and hunted was shrinking. Fast. A burner phone, vibrating urgently, pulled Alex from his paranoid thoughts. It was Ben. The message was garbled, crackling with interference and fear. Alex, they found me, a shadowy entity. Not the cops. They know about the viral. Ben's voice, usually brash, was laced with raw terror, words tumbling out in a desperate, broken stream. Then, a chilling, abrupt cutoff, leaving only dead air and a dial tone. Alex's blood ran cold. This wasn't just about his deception anymore. A powerful, unknown player had entered the game, one far more dangerous than the law. Ben was gone, or worse. The phone dropped from Alex's trembling fingers, the silence of his temporary refuge now an oppressive, terrifying void. His viral death had drawn a predator from the depths, and he was next. The flickering screen became a cruel mirror, reflecting not just a public spectacle, but a gaping wound-eyed inflicted. There was Lily, my Lily, on the news. Her voice, usually so vibrant, was a hushed, trembling whisper as she spoke of heartbreak, of lingering confusion, of a future brutally stolen. Her eyes, red-rimmed and distant, searched for answers I prayed she'd never find. Every word was a dagger, twisting deeper than any physical blow. I had orchestrated a magnificent deception, a viral sensation, but I hadn't accounted for the raw, unadulterated pain in her voice. The triumph that had fueled me, that cold, calculated ambition, began to crumble, replaced by a crushing wave of guilt. My carefully constructed facade splintered, revealing the monster beneath the mask, staring back from the screen. This was the cost of my grand illusion, etched into the face of the woman I once loved. The anonymity of the package was its most chilling detail. No return address, no sender, just a cold, unmarked box waiting on the grimy floor of my hideout. Inside, nestled on a bed of dark foam, was a sleek, obsidian black cube, devoid of any discernible buttons or ports. It hummed with a low, almost imperceptible thrum, a silent sentinel of an unseen threat. My fingers traced its seamless surface, a growing dread seizing my chest. This wasn't a gift. It was a message, a carefully delivered threat from the shadowy entity that had suddenly begun to darken my periphery. Every attempt to open it, to pry apart its impossibly tight seams, felt like a desperate struggle against a closing fist. They weren't just watching anymore. They were reaching out, asserting their power, pulling me deeper into their invisible web. The game had just escalated. Miles away, under a sky bruised with the promise of rain, Detective Miller moved with the relentless precision of a predator. My digital breadcrumbs had led her to a derelict industrial park, a labyrinth of rusted metal and broken glass. She was close, her instincts sharp, but ultimately, she was chasing a ghost of my own making. Inside a grimy, forgotten shed, a small-time criminal's paltry operation lay exposed: cheap drugs, a few stolen gadgets, nothing more. Miller's jaw tightened, her initial surge of adrenaline giving way to a frustrated sigh. The scent of my trail was there, tantalizingly close, but it veered sharply away, a phantom limb leading her nowhere. For a moment, the vastness of the city swallowed her efforts, leaving her momentarily thrown off, just as I'd planned. A small victory, yes, but a dangerous dance continued. The black box finally yielded its secret, not with a bang, but with the chilling hum of a satellite feed. On the crude monitor, a stark, real-time image materialized, a high-altitude, bird's-eye view of my very own hideout. I could see the cracked pavement, the dusty rooftop, even the tiny, pixelated figure of myself moving within its confines. My breath caught in my throat, a cold dread blossoming in my stomach. This wasn't just tracking. This was an omnipresent, godlike surveillance. The entity wasn't a street-level thug or a disgruntled associate. It was a sophisticated, powerful machine, an intelligence agency or a shadowy corporation with infinite resources and an eye in the sky. Every corner of my supposed sanctuary was exposed, every move monitored. There was no hiding, no escape, only the stark, undeniable truth of my utter vulnerability. They had found me and they were playing with me. Desperation, a bitter taste in my mouth, drove me deeper into the city's underbelly. I found him in a fog of stale cigarette smoke and cheap liquor, a notorious information broker with eyes that saw too much and asked for even more. The air crackled with unspoken threats and unholy alliances. I laid out my impossible request. New identities, a complete erasure, a way to disappear permanently from the eyes that watched me from above. The price he quoted was exorbitant, a sum that would strip away everything I had left, and the risks were deadly. A single misstep, a whisper in the wrong ear, and I wouldn't just be caught. I'd be gone, swallowed whole by the darkness. But what choice did I have? With the entity's satellite eye constantly on me, the deal, a pact with the devil himself, was my only sliver of hope, however slim. Then came the call, a frantic, distorted whisper from Ben, my last remaining tether to the outside world. His voice, usually so steady, was laced with terror, punctuated by sounds of struggle and muffled shouts. "They got me, Alex. The entity. They're using your viral death? A global distraction," he gasped, before screaming a string of seemingly nonsensical numbers and words, a coded message, a critical piece of information. Just as I scrambled to process it, the line went dead with a violent, sickening crackle. The silence that followed was deafening, more terrifying than any scream. Ben was gone, swallowed by the entity's ruthless grasp, sacrificed for my deception. His final, agonizing message hung in the air, a burden, a warning, and a desperate plea to uncover the truth before I, too, vanished. Miller's diligent, relentless work finally paid off. The fragmented clues, the digital footprints, the countless hours of surveillance. They all converged on a single point, an unassuming address in the forgotten corners of the city. My last precarious sanctuary. Her finger hovered over the dispatch button, a grim satisfaction settling over her determined features. The game was over. Within minutes, the city roared to life. Sirens wailed, tires screeched, and tactical units, a blur of dark uniforms and flashing lights, converged on my hideout with terrifying precision. The net was closing, a steel trap springing shut, leaving no room for escape. There was no more running, no more hiding. My carefully constructed world of deception was about to come crashing down, and Miller, a force of nature, was leading the charge. Ben's coded message clicked into place, a horrifying puzzle finally solved. My viral death, the global spectacle, wasn't just a consequence of my actions. It was a meticulously orchestrated distraction. A massive, nefarious operation, far grander and more sinister than I could have imagined, was unfolding in the shadows, using my elaborate deception as a smoke screen. They had needed the world to look one way while they moved silently in another. The irony was a bitter pill. My grand con, the ultimate act of self-preservation, had become a pawn in a game far beyond my control. Just as the full, terrifying scope of the entity's true purpose crashed down on me, the flimsy door to my hideout splintered inward with an explosive force. The trap had sprung. Police, a storm of dark uniforms and raised weapons, burst through the smoke and debris. My time was up. The air grew heavy, thick with the metallic tang of rain-slicked concrete and ozone. Then, Miller's voice cut through the urban decay like a serrated blade, sharp and uncompromising. "It's over, Alex." My breath hitched, a strangled gasp catching in my throat as he emerged from the deep gloom of the alley, his badge a dull glint against his oil-dark rain slicker. There was no escape. The dead end ahead was as final as a tombstone. But just as I braced for the inevitable cuffs, other shadows peeled away from the periphery. Figures, silent and spectral, materializing from the flickering neon and rising steam. The entity's operatives. Their eyes, cold pinpricks in the dim light, promised a fate far worse than any prison. I was trapped, a rat in a labyrinth with two distinct predators closing in. The roar of the distant city faded, replaced by the deafening drum of my own pulse. Disappear forever? A ghost serving a hidden agenda? Or blow the whole damn thing wide open, expose the monstrous truth, and face a world that would never forgive me? The choice hung heavier than a death sentence. The explosion ripped through the sublevel with the force of a small asteroid, showering the escaping hovercraft with a rain of molten shrapnel and severed wiring. Chimera's core facility, the very heart of their digital empire, was a burning tomb. I watched it collapse, a tower of fire against the dawn, the data stick clutched in my hand still humming faintly, a ghost in the machine. It wasn't the clean extraction I'd planned. It was a scorched-earth gamble that cost more than just hardware. The city above awoke to the chaos, sirens wailing, news feeds erupting with theories of industrial espionage, of rogue AI, of a phantom operative. They called me many things, none of them true. But the truth was there, embedded in the encrypted files I now carried, the irrefutable evidence of corporate malfeasance, of global manipulation, of the very architects who branded me a traitor. The orbital defense grid had gone silent. My gamble, my desperate act of sabotage, had bought me fleeting freedom. But freedom tastes like ash. The faces of those I'd lost, the sacrifices made, they burned brighter than any explosion. Justice isn't a clean slate. It's a heavy burden, etched into the lines around my eyes, into the perpetual tremor in my hand. The war wasn't over. It had just begun, shifting from the shadows of data streams to the unforgiving glare of the public eye. Now, I wasn't just Kalen or the cleaner. I was a herald, carrying the truth like a volatile bomb. And the world, oblivious in its digital slumber, was about to wake up. This wasn't an end. It was a declaration.